The easiest thing to think about with Vbrick is that we're like YouTube for the enterprise. Most all of the global auto manufacturers are our customers. I've known Conor and his family for years, and I've been involved in the racing industry for a while.
We have been using AI even before the Gen AI.
Sometimes videos contain negative value, which takes us to the latest innovation in Polkadot and why we're here, because we're now experiencing the same, questions on, well, where does the video come from?
Right.
Authenticity and all these issues have now come into place. But I think transactionally, it could be absolutely mammoth for Polkadot. And here's what we're looking at doing. This is the first time here on Space Monkeys, everybody, that we're going to announce what the name of it is.
The launch team wishes you good luck and Godspeed.
Space Monkeys, blasting off with Paul Sparta and Shailesh Lohiya from Vbrick. We have the CEO and the CTO here with us today. You may have heard about Vbrick in relation to the Conor Daly race car deal, possibly deploying on Polkadot, a lot of information swirling around. I thought I'd come here and get to the bottom of it myself. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Hi, nice to be here.
Nice to be here.
Vbrick is an AI-driven video service provider for which organizations? What are the big ones?
Large corporations. I think the easiest thing to think about with Vbrick is that we're like YouTube for the enterprise.
Okay, yeah.
Right. And so anything, we're all used to what YouTube does, live streaming or Twitch or something like that, and video storage. But, anything you do for the big enterprise becomes arbitrarily gnarly and complex and difficult, and we swim around in the deep end of the pool of video management and deployment and orchestration.
Some of these enterprises you serve, would we know them, or are they so deep?
Oh, no, they're so deep you can't possibly understand who. No, we've got some great customers. I mean, and they're all big enterprise-wide customers. Customers like Boeing, FedEx, Morgan Stanley, UBS. There are several names I can't say because they don't want their names said, but they're commercial companies mostly, and some government, but most of our business is commercial, it's global, and it's large multinational corporations.
You mentioned also Morgan Stanley there. That kind of stuck out to me because I was like, why does Morgan Stanley need video services?
Well, everybody initially says, well, what do they use that for? And it's the two things that really occur. One, which is just very hard to do, which is just large-scale live streaming. We're talking about live streaming on private networks globally via the cloud for 40, 50,000 simultaneous users. Which is very difficult to do in constrained and secure environments that are all over the world.
Yes,
That's one part of it. But the other part of it, which is even bigger and it's more AI-oriented, is the amount of video that gets created is just mammoth right now. And so, you think about every conference call. You have an hour-long meeting with 8 people. You just create an hour-long video.
Yep.
And what's on it? And where are you going to put it? Not to mention every vendor, every piece of equipment a large company uses, they have tons of video that go with that. Your customer support cases, it's video everywhere. And large companies are kind of behind the curve on like, oh my God, how are we dealing with this?
Sure.
And meanwhile, you got Super Bowl commercials with celebrities wearing the Ray-Ban 4K glasses. And they're like, we're going to start recording video everywhere. What are you going to do with it? Well, we're what you do with it.
Yeah, and in Morgan Stanley's case, they use our platform to record both internal meetings and external meetings. And these meetings, the recordings are really, private. Sometimes only certain, users, certain people need to have access to it.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what our platform does, right? So the access control, the security, the privacy.
Okay, I see the picture now. Okay, so Vbrick's been around for 27 years now, 1998?
Yeah, it's kind of like Vbrick Part 1 from 1998 to 2015, and then Vbrick Part 2.
Yeah, right.
There to now.
Just refresh my memory. It's kind of faint for me. 1998 video on the internet, what was that looking like?
That was WMV files sent to your Windows, what was it, Windows 98?
It was 95, 98.
Yeah, sure.
In corporate world, probably Windows 95.
Right.
And hardware encoders, right?
Yeah, everything was, Yeah, hardware encoders was the start of the business, high-performance hardware encoders. There was a lot of, Intel and defense industries, security, but it was like super specialized. There were, the idea of video everywhere was way too early.
Yeah.
But as long as there's been, the very first digital video, people have been trying to manage it. And of course, back then, you think the networks are constrained now. I mean, they were really, really constrained back then. So it was a highly specialized industry back in the day.
YouTube didn't come on the scene until when? Was it 2003 or 5?
Yeah,
or?
2003,
Yeah,
2005.
yeah, about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, and that really blew it all open. Now we're all consuming video, hours of video a day, right?
Nonstop. And
Yeah.
the bandwidth is different. The resolution expectations, the performance expectations. I mean, it's just a completely different ballgame now. I ended up after, in 2012, investing in Vbrick. I got asked by some of the existing investors, hey, do you want to join the board and do this? And I said, I'm not so excited about this video encoder thing. And then they said, well, it's 2012 and the encoder thing is kind of shifting. What if we changed the company, would you be willing to come on? And I'm like, well, okay. And that's a loaded question. And I said, yes, if we, switch to an all software company, I think this is all going into software. It's all going into the cloud. There's big enterprise need.
Yeah,
and they said, okay, come on in and invest. And soon after I was chairman of the board and invested, and then I came on as the CEO only about a little over 3 years ago, as sort of the industry was taking a bit of another shift. But as of about 2015, Vbrick was a clean sheet enterprise software video platform, and the market's been evolving ever since.
And in 2012, Paul contacted me and asked me to join Vbrick, and I've been here since then.
Did you have any reservations? Was it hard to bring you on board?
This was a new industry for me as well.
Okay.
When Paul said this is about video and all, but Paul and I had worked on other enterprise software companies before together.
Yeah.
So we were still in the enterprise software business, but with a different product. So
What was your area of expertise before?
So building highly scalable platforms, cloud-based SaaS platforms.
Gotcha. Okay. So this was perfect for the new direction you wanted to take the company.
Yeah, exactly.
Cloud-based, everything cloud.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Vbrick, and it's still a big advantage for the company, had super deep video expertise. I mean, we're getting into the very nitty-gritty of high performance and high quality video for a very long time, but they didn't have the expertise in the large-scale cloud enterprise apps.
Yeah.
So it was, the peanut butter and the chocolate there.
Beautiful. So we're undergoing another change technologically right now. Is this what you were referring to when you kind of became CEO, the AI change?
Yeah, I think it's the AI change.
Yeah.
And, our market we've been ahead of the market as a company in that we, had this vision of what we wanted video to be able to do in the enterprise, which is really be part of all the work processes. Like everything we do as consumer for the last decade, we do it with video. I mean, nobody says, hey, I want to cook a beef Wellington. I could either watch one of these great chefs cook a beef Wellington and learn how to do it watching YouTube.
Yeah.
Nobody says, yeah, forget about that. Give me the paper recipe and the book, and I would rather do that, right? Everybody wants to do things with video. But on the flip side, in the large corporate world, the networks are several years behind the sort of arbitrary bandwidth we're used to having as consumers. So it's still quite complex to make something that transports and eats as much bandwidth as video safe to operate on corporate and in private and secure networks. So we've got a lot of secret sauce in the company about exactly how to do that and at scale. And now really lately, what's shifted is now the demand to say, okay, we can do video now in corporate world, and we can do it at scale, and now we want to connect it into what the actual business processes. So we want to add we want to add video to HR processes. We want to add video to IT support processes. We want to add video everywhere, and we want to communicate more with video to our partners and our customers and our, all over the place.
Yeah.
Right, which takes us to, our the latest innovation in Polkadot and why we're here, because we're now experiencing the same, questions on, well, where does the video come from?
Right.
Authenticity and all these issues have now come into play. So
yes,
it's suddenly like accelerating massively.
AI has helped us to expose the value of all the videos, right? So you can imagine any corporations have terabytes of videos, and how do you expose all the value that's hidden within this video that is easily searchable and easily digestible by the end user?
I see. So indexing what's happening in the video is one example.
Indexing,
Yeah.
transcription, summarization
Of
of the
course.
video. So let's say you have a 1 hour video and you don't have time to watch that entire video. You just want to see the bits and pieces that you are interested in about that video. How do you get to those bits and pieces that you want to see? So we are using AI. I mean, we have been using AI even before the Gen AI, right? Gen AI became popular in November 2022, but we have been using AI like transcription, machine learning, automated translations before that.
We just started doing this with the Kus. We have a Spanish Kus now. So you can do this as well on an enterprise level. That makes sense if you have an international business, right?
Yeah. And
International
of course, the language is, it's everything. Oh, yeah. Well, we're in 10 different countries. We got to work, the requirement is you got to be all 10 languages.
Right. So either you can shoot the video 10 times to
exactly.
or
and that used to be the practice sometimes. I mean, that's what was crazy about this. And I think what AI unlocks is what Shailesh was saying is the ability to actually index through and find those things at speed and get to the right items. And what's cool about it is we don't have to do crazy training of models. We're not trying to come up with the greatest AI-driven insight in the world.
Yeah.
We're trying to say if you're in a company and you're looking for information on how this router gets fixed and of this particular model, we're going to present to you in rank order. Like, here's everywhere this was mentioned. But more importantly, we're going to allow you to see the things that you're allowed to see. So that's the other flip side of it, which is, we're not going to pull out for a customer the deep R&D plans that are over there. Those videos you can't look at.
Okay.
Right? So the security and the ability to slice and dice all this is critical, or else a large company won't do it. You can only imagine that, an auto manufacturer, most all of the global auto manufacturers are our customers. That way I don't have to name any of them.
Okay.
They certainly want to protect what their product pipeline looks like. And the other key about this is that there's other systems out there, other enterprise systems that usually manage these ownerships and what the security structure looks like. And we have to connect with all of these.
Yeah.
So it's not like, so you think about it, we're like a bus and train terminal for video.
Sure.
We don't need to know, we don't have to specify what kind of buses you go. We don't have to specify the destination. We don't have to specify any of that, but we have to make sure that the right video gets to the right place at the right time and not the wrong place. And we haven't even discussed where, sometimes videos contain negative value.
Oh, certainly. They can be hella destructive, especially in the wrong hands, right?
Yeah. You can only imagine if you looked at Raw and you said, hey, well, this is a company that's going to conduct 200 meetings of an hour or more with 6 or more participants.
Sure.
Let's just say only 4 of those have some kind of objectionable, risky content, or somebody in the midst of a meeting drops the name. Oh, it's a pharmaceutical. They drop the name of the next compound by accident in a video.
Yeah.
And the next compound is supposed to be a secret. Oops. Well, you got to be able to catch that stuff and curate. So there's a whole lot of it goes deep fast.
That is so cool. When you have these massive video pipelines and they need to be shielded or protected, obviously the question of where the video is stored, where it's coming from, who has access along the way, these are all big questions, especially in a cloud atmosphere. Maybe we can solve some of these problems with blockchain. Before we get into it, though, the story of how you got connected with Polkadot is quite interesting.
Yes.
This was through our Conor Daly IndyCar sponsorship. And what was interesting to me during my research, I found you yourself are a race car driver.
Yes.
A race car team owner.
Before I came back into Vbrick as the CEO, I thought I was retired. I actually was for a time. And when I was previously working full time, I was always done a lot of driving and been pretty good at it. And I've known Conor and his family for years and I've been involved in the racing industry for a while, and finally had the opportunity to start doing it myself. Realized that had enough talent to do this at a semi-pro level.
Wow.
Went ahead and started a race team, and we've gotten pretty successful, and we've got a big year. In fact, Conor drove a couple races, had a second place with us, and drove at Indy. He'll be driving with us at Indy after his IndyCar season is done again this year. But it's all sports cars, so we're sort of in the Rolex, Le Mans sports car world, and that in and of itself is a full-time job. And then I kind of got dragged back into this. And so now I kind of, I'm stretched a little thin, but having a good time.
It's quite a wild connection. And, a lot of people in the Polkadot community, dot holders, shareholders, they question the value of these sort of sports partnerships. We have a few. We have one with Inter Miami, the biggest athlete in the world wearing Polkadot. But people say, well, what's the value? We have Conor Daly wearing Polkadot, and it brought you to the table. What do you think is the key with these sponsorships? Why do they work? Why does Oracle and Cisco and all these groups do these sponsorships?
I think when you look at, and it's, I don't want to speak to the team sports world. I could speak a little bit certainly to the motorsport world. Yeah. The motorsport world's very tech-centric. Right. You of course see it at Formula One at that level, and that's at nosebleed levels of expense and that sort of thing. But you look at the suppliers, you look at the people that are involved, there's just a great affinity because racing is so technologically driven. It's so intricate and it's so precise, and to be successful, how hard it is to be successful. People like me, we like it because it's hard, not because it's easy. We like it because it's brutally difficult. I tell people, don't get involved in motorsport unless you deal with disappointment well, because you will be severely disappointed. Sure. Last year I broke my back in a racing accident. Thankfully, I'm 100% back in the cockpit. Wow. But you break your back, you smash a car up, suddenly, it's not fun. But you gotta want it kind of badly. But there's this tech affinity. When you look at the sponsors that we have on our team, it's a lot of tech companies, and they get together and they talk, and you'd be surprised at how much deal traffic and interest there is in the paddock of particularly sports cars, IndyCar, and of course at Formula One. So, it's a great environment. And, the thing with Conor, I've known Conor for years. And when we got to the point where, okay, we think we've got this use case that's super cool and blockchain needs to be a part of it. We think we've stumbled on one that it needs to be blockchain. There's a really good affinity for it. Yeah. And when Conor told me, well, I've got this Polkadot, I'm like, Polkadot, who's that? Well, it's a cryptocurrency thing, and then it's blockchain. But it's kind of cool because it's not like a regular crypto thing. It's really more of a development platform. And I'm like, we have something going on here.
I see, yeah.
So that's all how it kind of happened. And then it's like, well, let's investigate it. So then Shailesh, we got kind of deep.
That's incredible. What did you think when you heard about the Polkadot?
Yeah, so initially when Paul told us it's a Polkadot is a blockchain, and I immediately thought, okay, it's a cryptocurrency, right? So you equate blockchain to cryptocurrency. So what will we do with cryptocurrency, right? But then when we got deeper into what Polkadot does and how it helps secure content, and how it helps to audit create audit trails of all the things, of all the transactions. So we got really interested in that. And as Paul said, we were already looking into how do we advance. So Vbrick has always been known for security, right? Securing the contents, proper access control. So we have been the leader there. So how do we advance that security beyond what we already do? So that's when we started evaluating Polkadot and see how blockchain technology will help us advance that security.
And the performance characteristics of Polkadot and its related technologies were far more geared towards the kind of development that we wanted to do, which is how we got connected with the Block Deep folks. And so that's really worked out, great.
Yeah, we built it for enterprise applications just like this. Look, I want to hear about this use case, but probably should mention real quick what's happened to Conor since we were all put together here. Went for another season, and it was a long 6-month process, negotiation with shareholders. At the last minute, a large shareholder who wasn't participating in the discussion came in and wiped out the whole deal.
Yeah, it was tough. I spoke to Conor about it, and I watched some of the discussion that you had been involved in afterwards. It was really disappointing because I think what success that was built there would have continued. I think there was a very strong path to continuing to get engagement with the tech community and other stakeholders to understand that there's a bigger thing here. And I would just say, speaking as a guy whose job has been a CEO for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
It's very hard to say, what's my hard ROI on marketing? It's never an easy question. I mean, even if you take it out of like an OpenGov kind of concept that we've got there where you've got people looking at it, I'm saying even as a CEO, a guy with, I got all the data, I can ask for all the data that I want, driving marketing ROI in the abstract is very, very difficult to do. But when you don't have presence, the absence of it becomes acute and you feel the pain. And so I feel that, and it's, it's never that fast. I mean, it's one thing if you're saying, hey, we're selling, the newest cheap, great sunglasses for $8 a pair. Well, yeah, I can turn up the marketing volume and the outbound, right? And I can get a super hard ROI on what my return is for selling something like that.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about a development platform and something sophisticated, it's presence, it's relationships, it's being where you're going to, have access to build these relationships. And, I think it's a shame that exploring that rationale, Conor, sadly, they didn't have an opportunity to really explore that fully. And I think, had the person who voted that down had a chance to understand that in a little more fulsome way, exactly how that works, might have had a different outcome.
Yeah, that is a shame and painful, especially with this knowledge that it's such a high-tech industry specifically, and you guys are all talking.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're in the midst of a discussion with a supplier, with a company right now as a prospect that has over 400,000 employees globally. It is a name that is all over motorsports, automotive, technology, and software. And,
right, we're not going to have
maybe we won't have it's not going to come up. They're not going to ask the question, who is Polkadot and why? And what is this thing you're doing with Polkadot? So, we'll still be able to answer that as Vbrick. I mean, we're going forward with our approach. But again, just sort of taking that opportunity away, I think there will be something lost by not having that this year, unfortunately.
All right. Well, thanks for addressing that and sharing your perspective there. It's disappointing, but nice to hear we're moving forward with this use case you guys have been building.
Yes.
How do we describe what we're building here?
Well, I think this one is going to be one of the most interesting use cases that anybody sees. And I'm not one for hyperbole, but I think transactionally it could be absolutely mammoth for Polkadot. And here's what we're looking at doing. This is the first time here on Space Monkeys, everybody, that we're going to announce what the name of it is. And the project is called, and the name of the initiative is called Verified Authentic. And what Verified Authentic is going to attempt to answer is, rather than combating and playing the game, the space race, if you will, of trying to detect inauthentic content, how about we flip the script and absolutely move from a trust model to a truth model via blockchain to determine the authenticity of the content, right? So we could have the Kus be authentic where we know if I'm looking at it on a verified authentic by Vbrick platform, player, server, I absolutely know it's from you. Which doesn't mean somebody can't fake it.
No, right.
Right. Somebody could fake it and claim they were you and put it out anywhere they want to on something. But if I wanted to know, no, I just want the authentic. I know exactly where to go. I now have an icon. I know where that is.
Yep.
Well, that model doesn't work outside of using a trustless, a blockchain type platform. And if it's adopted, it's going to be so transactionally intense that you have to have the highest performance blockchain network, and you have to have a partner that has a pipeline and focus on continually improving transactional efficiency and scalability.
Sure.
And you can't have one entity owning it all. Like, you can't have this say, hey, well, trust us. Well, why? Vbrick owns it all and it's sitting on Amazon somewhere. That's not really what this is all about. But the point of doing it is that when you start to conceive of rolling forward absolute verification of content being authentic and what the source is and that you know who the source is and it's absolutely from them, and you imagine a world where that proliferates, well, now you can do some very powerful things that you could never do. Like you can control whitelists. You can control all your sources of valid information. So what you can do is you can choose then to turn off the noise of potential disinformation, right? Which doesn't say like, hey, there's a time to go out to TikTok and into YouTube Shorts and just look at whatever anybody's throwing out there, right? But if you want valid news, you want to know, hey, what was the latest recall that Honda had and what's the right information? And they have a video for this. Don't you think that a company would want to do that? And similarly, once you get adoption there, don't you think that people who are content creators like yourself would say, I want my viewing base, my fan base, my audience to know to only access me on authentic places where I'm verified. And with video, it's really hard because blockchain really isn't made to hold, and Web3 really is not yet where you can do video at scale. It just can't. But we are working within a framework of an organization called C2PA, which is it stands for the Coalition for Content, Authenticity, and Provenance and Authenticity. And it's Adobe, Microsoft, Amazon, the big dogs are in this. And what we're doing is their spec is a specification, and Shailesh can give more about this, to actually watermark and control the content itself. So there's very sophisticated watermarks embedded in content when they want to see this in phone cameras and everything. The problem with it is it's bound to the content itself. And with video, it's frame by frame. So it becomes ridiculously expensive to do it with video. But we can put a manifest on blockchain that not only controls where valid sources are and only allows you to access a valid source or flags it as an invalid source, but also allows the content owner to determine what the current information is so they can pull out content and say, that's no longer current. You can think about how important that might be to say, I don't know, a pharmaceutical company that says, we've changed our dosage guidelines. You think about it from an adoption perspective, it goes crazy at some point.
This is good. I think our audience can relate to this because there's another project on Polkadot Origin Trail, and they've been doing supply chains for years, even before blockchain. But now they're talking about this verifiable internet, right? They have a DKG, it's verified information. Now you can train AI on verified information as opposed to, AI training on its own imaginative information, which is a problem. You're doing it for video.
Yeah, but think about it for things like news sources.
Yeah, sure.
Right? We just had this, thankfully, no one dying plane crash in Toronto, or the regional jet. And the video was immediately floating around. Well, wouldn't it be nice to know that some of that stuff wasn't like deep faked and somebody put out video that you would know immediately, oh, this is a verified player, so I know that where the source is. I can click on it. I can see an audit trail from the chain.
Yes.
And anybody using a player can say, well, that goes to the chain to check first that that's the right one to go to, and they're going to see that. And now you've got some information. It allows people to switch from this idea of how I don't have to think about what might be suspicious. I can identify sources that I know are reliable, whether it be a manufacturer, a company, a person, Taylor Swift, and I know that that's from them. The implications just keep coming. How it can affect the way DRM, digital rights management, is done is dramatic as well, because right now the DRM industry is highly inefficient. They spend time scraping and detecting. And think about it. They're looking for snippets of, wait a minute, Jay, you used this theme in your video. I heard this song, and therefore we're demonetizing the video or blocking you.
Yeah, it happens to us,
Right.
And it's not always correct. Sometimes it gets it wrong, or we have the license, but they don't know, and it's a whole process.
Right.
Yeah.
And, and if the source is valid, you'd know immediately that it was not. So you would never even use the wrong.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a cool, audacious, big, hairy idea. And what I love about it is it's a use case that it simply doesn't work or make sense outside of using blockchain. It's the only technology available to do that sort of thing.
Huge.
So, and it comes with a lot of hair, but we're working on it.
No doubt. So what's been the technical challenges so far? You've been working with Block.deep. They obviously did the Mythical migration, which was big.
Yeah.
What's been looking like over
So
here?
yeah, I mean, the challenges were, as you said, they were in the midst of the migration. The pricing model was also the transactional pricing model. It was also not established yet, so we had to work through that. We ourselves as a company, right? We didn't have a blockchain expert, so Block.deep Labs helped us with that, training us, working with us. We had engineers from them building that, prototype. So. Yeah.
And there's some things that are interesting is that we can't expose, like we can't ask users to have wallets to do this. Because, as we've, as many of the discussions you have, it's like a different world when you start dealing, on chain. And when you're familiar with it and you're inculcated to it, it's not a big deal. You look at it and say, oh, I'm used to this. But for the average person who's just looking like, I just need tokens to upload valid content. So also part of it is us building a way that people can transact in real currencies and then we're managing a service to turn that into transactional tokens so that there's some de minimis, price to upload a valid piece of content because at some point you have to pay for decentralized compute.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
The average person doesn't want to get into the floating rate of what anything is. So we need to abstract that out. And that's just because it's to drive adoption. So the goal for us, once we build the framework and, we intend to have the first operating pieces in the summertime is really adoption because we're going to open source the server and client protocols.
Sure.
So we want this, we're not trying to stranglehold this. We want this protocol to go to all the providers, YouTube, Amazon, whoever out there is doing video. Yeah, and say you can use this, and we're going to give you a very simple way to get people onto the chain and working with it.
It's probably, or maybe it's too early, but are you folks thinking about launching your own utility token, or you want to do like a stablecoin system, or using DOT, or what are we thinking in this direction?
I think it's going to be along the lines of like a stablecoin situation where we'll manage the arbitrage against what the actual DOT price would be and try to abstract that out so that, there's going to always be a little bit of margin there. But our goal in the adoption of this is we want to keep the per transaction price as low as we can. And that's a big part of where the Polkadot came into this because it's not enough to be just, hey, we've got a blockchain and we can do that. We need what the community brings.
Yeah.
It's a symbiotic thing. We're investing millions in the development of the system.
Yeah.
But we need Polkadot to keep investing in the performance and, the cost per transaction and, all of the proper Web3 advancements are very important to us if this is successful. So, we don't do things to build them to not be successful. We're trying to do it to build it to be huge.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation because you want an underlying system that first doesn't shut down occasionally, right? It needs to be as reliable as the cloud infrastructure we're dealing with today, right?
Absolutely.
It needs to be able to keep scaling, as you said, and I think Polkadot's doing that with Jam. Very high quality block space, even more coming soon.
Yep.
And of course, also you need it a resilient system so nobody can take it over, right? And just erase all the value that you've been building.
That's exactly it. And we can't have a trust bottleneck. We just cannot have that. We need this to be, a persistent, truth-based system, trustless system. And here you go. It's like tailor-made for that. So cool. And then it's our job to do the heavy lifting and make sure all the, the video aspects of this work. And, where we have leverage and what's great about it also, I think what we're pretty excited about is we will be able to drive adoption instantly by adopting this immediately into our platform and simply granting our enterprise customers some of the names I mentioned earlier and others and say, okay, well, you have 100,000 content transactions automatically. We're just giving them to you on our dime. We're hoping to really kickstart a lot of use in the corporate world and have that filter down into smaller organizations and then individual content creators.
Yeah, and one thing I like about Polkadot is that it's not just, mining currency or mining memes and all, right?
Yeah,
they have all these other use cases, right? Like in our case, it's the video security and authenticity and provenance use case, right? And they have other things going on, as you said, the supply chain, use cases. So which is great for enterprise.
So awesome. Now, some of the examples you were giving there when you were talking about how this technology could be useful, you were saying news, verified information on celebrities. This is kind of outside of your current customer base. Are you thinking you could grow a little bit?
Well, I mean, I think we could grow to an extent, but also with an initiative like this, you can make a mistake by trying to say, hey, we're a for-profit company. We want to grab on and hold on to every little bit. If you do that, you end up looking like the thing you don't want to be. So we need to make this available for everyone. But I think the point of it is the use cases get better and more robust the more people that adopt.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, I would love, nothing would make me happier than Google saying, we just saw what you did there, and can we adopt this and can we adapt it? And I want to say, yes, we'd love you to. Let's get it on YouTube. Let's make it so that you've got a verified authentic icon with a nice little polka dot ring around it. When people see that, they know. It's not just left to YouTube. Somebody created an account and threw it out there. When I see that it's, pick a name randomly. If I see it's FedEx, I know that content for sure is absolutely from FedEx. It's fresh, it's audited, it's there.
Huge, yeah.
Right? And why? Because it's on the blockchain. And even if I went to another provider and it has that icon, I'm getting it because they authorized it, yes.
I mean, there's the adoption by for-profit companies, but then there's also regulators. I can think of some movements in the European Union, some requirements as far as data storage and data ownership goes. It might get to the point where platforms have to integrate a technology like this.
Yeah, and the thing is, the model that we're doing, and by working with this organization C2PA and adopting to their standard, is it actually, it's kind of funny. We're doing the heavy lifting with video, but it works for documents and images as well, right? So it's essentially like a smart contract, really. But the regulatory thing you pointed out is huge because there's a few industries in healthcare and particularly in life sciences and in government regulation. It's so important for everybody to know what the latest is. It has to be current. I need to know. So I need certainty on the validity of certain content. I mean, even if you think of mundane things like, I need to know that this guidance on how to get a visa to go to Armenia is accurate.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Not just some link that's floating around there on a website, right?
Yeah.
I need to know that this is the right one, right? So blockchain's perfect for doing that. But you just need a framework that allows it to connect to, where the media actually is.
We are so trusting these days.
It's true. I mean, and we, regardless of which end of a political spectrum anybody might be on or whatever, everybody's suspect of everything else that's out there. Everybody suggests that, this is disinformation or that is disinformation. And it's, regardless of whatever one's viewpoint is, the proliferation of opposing absurd viewpoints is there, right? We can all go see that looking at any social media or video site or whatever.
This is so cool.
You just have to flip the script. You can't get involved in this. How do we detect what's authentic and what's not? Because we're seeing some phenomenal AI tools that are creating, wait a minute, authentic, inauthentic content.
Yep.
There's some companies that are really great and have a ton of funding that are doing speech to live avatar. It's still authentic. It's not an actual image of you or recording, but it's still authorized content. So you just have to change the whole model to say, how do we make it so that we keep everybody who wants to be authentic?
Okay, so when does this happen? When do we start seeing transactions on Polkadot? A couple months or?
Yeah, I think beyond test transactions, I think we'll still be in test mode probably through, I would say, May.
Yeah.
And then June, we'll start sort of a 0.9, would you call it, Shailesh, like a 0.9 type release, where we'll start to release this into a few volunteer clients.
Wow.
And what we're going to do is we're going to be building what I would call sort of a mini YouTube.
Oh.
Not because we're going to go compete with YouTube, but just because we need to build a fully functional example of the infrastructure and how to use it. So, we'll invite the Kus onto that and say, hey, jump on here and put your videos out there so we have verified, authentic on blockchain, right? And we'll put you out on our, and that's just as an example. And so our idea is that we would open that up to say the YouTubes or any other provider in the video or media space to say, you can build it just like this. So that's when we expect transactions to really start. I expect in the third quarter we'll probably open up, later part of the third quarter, early fourth quarter of this year, we'll open it up into our product line fully. And it will just be turned on like as a switch to any of our client base. So we'll go very hot, probably late August, early September with the customer base.
Oh, that's pretty fast. I was kind of joking about a couple months, but okay. No, yeah. Race car mentality. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, if it's there, go.
Yeah,
Let's
no
go.
doubt. So cool. Okay, and you're going to get a roll-up slot, a parachain slot, taking one core of Polkadot. You'll probably need multiple cores once this scales, right?
Yeah,
Thinking about
absolutely.
this already?
Yeah. Even in the demo, right? We have been running with multiple cores and so just to prove the scale.
It's been frustrating that we haven't really gone public with this idea until now. So it's cool that this is how we get to do it.
Well, thank you very much for giving us your time and announcing this on this show. We're going to get it out as quickly as possible and share this great vision and progress with everybody. Thanks for checking out Polkadot as well, and for, sounds like, showing off to the world what it can do.
Yeah, I think that's pretty exciting. I think it's interesting, and one thing I would say is, Amazon actually is pretty friendly. You wouldn't think they would be to Web3. So I think they're going to have a lot of interest in how this goes on, because I think this could be a really cool Web3 flex if it adopts.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for bringing us along.
Thank you for having us.
Wonderful.
Awesome.